Okay, starting with session one. Good morning. Welcome to the class. This Flutter class. Please, I hope everyone can still hear me. Hello. Okay. So today we start with session one, just like an introductory session of the class. Look at the lesson objective and the session goals, and just definition of Flutter, what is used for, and so forth. So this session is just to introduce the Flutter frameworks and then just explain some of the features, and then we'll further see the session list and then the advantage of creating an application with Flutter. So the session finally concludes by elaborating steps involved in okay, how do we install a Flutter in Android Studio. So in this class, we'll be using Android Studio, but you can decide to use any IDE of your choice. Right? For me, I'll be using Android Studio. If you want to use Visual Studio, you can use Visual Studio. All are same thing. So, what is Flutter? So, in application development, uh, one can develop application using various platforms, and then Android and iOS are example of platforms for which wireless or mobile applications can be developed, right? So until when a company required to build mobile applications targeting multiple platforms, two categories of developers like need to be hired, right? So one specifically for Android and the other specifically for iOS. So those were the limitations before that was being applied to Android development without this Flutter coming into existence. So when we are talking about Android development, then we need to consider that okay, when you are building Android application, you need two developers, one for iOS and one for Android. So this not only increase the time taken to for development, uh, developing the app, but also it increase the cost of pushing updates, overhead cost, and so on. So this will increase the development time and it will slow down the timeline of the project as well. 'Cause looking at two developers working on on one single project just because of different platform compatibility, right? So what was the solution for this is Flutter. Of course, we know Flutter is not only the frameworks that can be used to build cross-platform application. You can also use React Native, and we can also use React as well. So it just depending on what platform you are comfortable with. All delivers the same. So Flutter, React Native, Iconic, all these are the frameworks that solve this problem of having to develop multiple applications for several platforms by using cross-platform development approach. So in this approach, applications are developed that can be used in both uh, platform, which is Android and iOS. So what is Flutter now? Flutter is a tool, just a tool or a framework that allows building native cross platform applications, which is when we say cross platform, we're talking about Android and iOS. That's all. Those are the only two cross platform that we have. So with one programming language and one code base, just like you are seeing in this little sorry, just like you are seeing in this little table here, one application language and one code base, shows how Flutter can be utilized for developing applications across several platforms. Right. So from this table, we can see how this is possible to develop this cross-platform application. So Flutter uses that. That is the official programming language developed by Google for building Flutter application. So Flutter uses that, which is focused on front end, that is the UI. When you're talking about front end, because we always know that we're talking about the UI, the user interface. So that is developed by Google and is an object-oriented programming language. So the syntax for that is a mixture of JavaScript, Java, and C sharp programming language itself. So, but mostly it's of Java. If you if you have a little background with Java, then you are likely to play around Flutter because that is object-oriented programming language, and we know JavaScript. For me, it's not really object compared to C sharp and Java itself. So if you have a little knowledge of Java, then you can quickly grab this Flutter. And what are the advantages of this Flutter? All right, so one we have hot reload. Yeah, this we also have in Android. Hot reload just make it possible to see changes in the code immediately by making it visible in the UI. Just like when you do Control S to save something, immediately that thing is saved. So same thing comes to Flutter development. When you do your Control S and save your code, now you're not saving, you're just for reloading, right? So when you just do Control this, you just see that the effect, whatever changes you have done on the screen will manifest immediately. You will see the changes in the UI. So that is one powerful thing about Flutter, because if you compare to Android, to get this, you will need to reload the whole application, and it takes time. So this fasten your job, you speed up the process of working on the application concept. So moreover, it enables developers to fix cost, that save money and effort, right? Of course, we know it is cross-platform development. That is the most important thing here about Flutter. If not, it wouldn't have even come to existence at the first place, if not because of cross-platform development. Right. So we have the widget library, right? Everything in Flutter is all about widgets, right? Widgets can be seen as just like every subsection on the screen, like your text, like your button, your icon, everything like that is called a widget. A widget just is subsections on the screen. Every part that you are clicking, you are touching, which is the text, which is the button, which is the icon. Those are called the widget. So the widget can be anything such as padding, could be color, it could be menu, could be button, right? So Flutter is able to create complex customizable widgets depending on application requirements. Right. So other example include the Cupertino package. The Cupertino package is what comes with iOS. So this you will understand this later as we proceed in this class. So the Cupertino package and the material design. The material design, if you are coming from Android development, you have done a little bit of Android, you will see that Android uses material designs. When they say material design, it's just a widget that is more compatible, friendly with Android. Then when they say Cupertino package, they are just libraries, they are just dependencies that are more compatible with Apple development. Please, can anyone hear me? Hello? Okay. All right, thank you. I'm just hearing only one person voice. All right. So when you say native, right, native performance, of course, in Flutter, Google, Fuchsia, iOS, and Android provide field specific widget. Integration of this widget into Flutter app for several located based functions is possible. So existing Swift, Java, and Object-C code can be made to use. So what this is just saying is that we can also integrate native code. When they say something is native, it means it is not specific to that platform, something like Swift for Java development. So you're just trying to, okay, plug in some Swift code into your own code, or you're trying to plug in some Object-C code into Flutter. So this integration of third party is possible through their APIs. Right. So if you want to use maybe Swift API to get your location, you're looking for location or camera. So you can integrate this just like Google Map, right? So when you're trying to integrate Google Map into your application, so you always use their API most of the time to, you know, integrate this Google Map. Of course, Google Map is mostly of their API. So once you register with them, they will give you your secret key, and then you're able to gather all the API you want, integrate it into your application. So that's what they call native performance. Now we have open source. Of course, Flutter is an open source platform by Google to create Flutter applications. Right. So several design options can be explored by developers. Applications that are easy to use can be created with the help of Cupertino widget and material design. So this Cupertino I'm saying and material design, they are just compatibility frameworks with either Flutter, with either Android or Google or iOS. So in most cases, you can decide to use anyone and it will still be compatible. Whether you are designing Android interface, you can use Cupertino packages. Whether you are designing iOS packages, you can still use material design. So all these Flutter make it cross-platform compatible, right? So and then we have some forums, some communities available online. So when you are stuck, uh, questions that might be bothering you could be questions people have answered before. So they always have a large community. If you go to Flutter Stack, Stack Overflow, you ask questions. I'm very sure whatever you're asking, people have, asked before. So using Flutter for application development, what are the benefits that you can see, right? One is one code. You don't have to write two code, for same project. You write just one code and you get same output, right? And it's simple. Flutter is very easy to learn and it's easy to use, compared to some other frameworks, right? But I'm not saying other frameworks are difficult. I'm talking to Java. I'm talking to Flutter. Flutter is more easy to learn. Then easy testing, of course. App testing is very easy in Flutter because of the unit testing functionality. And apart from the unit testing functionality, I will also say the hot reload functionality that it has. So um, when you are doing your hot reload, you are also testing your app to see the effect immediately. So this testing become very easy and simple and makes your development time, to be more faster. And then we have some good libraries, some good UI library that support Flutter. So inbuilt UI functions with which enhance your UI and UX. So you will see these things. For example, let's say you want to use some Google. Google has some functionality. For instance, let's say you want to integrate your Twitter button, your Google button, your Gmail button, your Skype button. So these things you don't need to design them from default. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So there's some good libraries that you can use and then just plug in and you see those buttons coming up on your screen. So you just make use of them instead of trying to design the shape. Unlike what we face with Android, when you're building Android application, maybe with Java, you see that every button you need to go and create a shape, and then from the shape you try to, twist it to turn it to maybe Twitter button or to turn it to Google button. So Flutter have those libraries already. So once you add those dependencies, you'll be able to use those libraries and then use whatever widgets that you want to use from there. So we have the custom interface, and then we have scalability. Of course, Flutter is scalable. You know, it has some future scope, like you can integrate some other functionalities in the future. So let's quickly see the architecture of this Flutter. I'm trying to make my screen a little bit. When I make it big like this, sometimes I'm not able to scroll. That is why I always reduce it a bit. So the architecture and component of Flutter, Flutter framework body comprises of four components. One, we have the Flutter engine, the foundation library, the widgets, and the design specific widgets. Of course, these are theory aspect of it. You just need to, it's just like you coming from Java and you don't understand what they call the JVM, right? So if you are coming from Java, you need to understand what they call JVM, right? So the JVM is just like is the machine, right, of your Java uh, application. This is why I don't always expand the screen. Let me bring it back. Sorry. But are you comfortable with this view? Hello? Hello? Can anyone hear me? Yeah. Are you comfortable with this view? Okay, thank you. All right, so the foundation library contains the required packages for writing full-fledged Flutter applications. Please, these are the internal workings of Flutter, right? So these are not something you are going to be interfacing with that you are going to see, but just to explain to you what was beneath when you are writing your code, when you are running your code, what makes those things happen. So these are just the architecture, the components that makes things to work in your Flutter application. So the Flutter UI is exposed of widgets which are classified as by design languages of Google. Don't forget, Google is the owner of Flutter. So thereby they make it, they have integrated a lot of libraries, a lot of plugins for that support Google's design. Like I said, if you are looking for maybe Gmail button, if you're looking for the Google button, once you add their library to your code, you definitely see those buttons and then you can interface with them and play with it. So all these all these components you are seeing are the material design and the Cupertino style. So if you look for a little bit down, you see that the framework for that is the material and the Cupertino. Those are the two. And beneath we have the widgets. Of course, I've said widget is anything like color, like menu, like button, like text. Those are what they call widgets, right? Then beneath widgets, you see the rendering. Rendering is just you displaying things to your UI, and then after displaying things to your UI, of course, what do you have again is the display, the animation, the painting, and the gestures. Then we have the foundation. Then if you go below, in the engine, right, it runs using the C and C as C++ engine. That is what Flutter is being run. So you see the service pool, the composition, the platform channels, and that isolate setup, rendering, system events, that runtime, all these are the C++ engine that foster the running of your Flutter application. Then we have the embedder platform, which is the last. Then just to render surface setup, and then this contains your native plugins from another third party, and then your app packaging as well. When you want to package your app into different packaging available environments, and then we have the trace setup and the event uh, loop. Right. So installing Flutter application, first of all, like I said in this session, I will be using Android Studio, but you can decide to use Visual Studio. Any IDE of your choice, you can go ahead and use it. Just some flow might just be different, but believe me, everything will still work as it should work. So before you set up Flutter, you must ensure that one, your system requirements are in place, which is what is very, very specific to the operating system here. So if you want, you can come here. I don't need to do share this. Flutter and load. So for Windows, if you are using Windows, you can directly come to their. So from here, you can download Flutter. Let me share this link in the in-call message. All right. So from this link for people using Windows, so you just click on Flutter and then you can download. So let me share the link for people using Mac. Of course, Mac we always have some other ways to install. So this is the link for Mac. Let me share it in the forum. So those are the two links you can use to download your Flutter. So once your requirement is met, of course, then you can proceed and download those links. So after you download the SDK or for Flutter, the next step is to set the SDK path, which is automatically done while installing the Flutter. Um, Currently, I have Flutter installed on my system, but if you don't know how to install it, it's a simple process. If you have installed Android Studio on your system, it's not difficult to install. My system already have, and running it again will cause some issue because the last time I took class, I have to run it and it was causing a problem for me because of the version. So if anybody is stuck, just you can buzz me up in the process, then share your screen. I can always put it through on how to, so you can either mail me or chat. I think WhatsApp is better. So you can just chat me on WhatsApp here so that we can all follow the steps together to install Flutter on your system. But if you can install, uh, top notch for you. But if you can't, just chat me up on WhatsApp and then we can do a call. I can put you through how to install it. So once you have finished setting, downloading, and set the path, maybe I'll do another recording and share with you after this session on how you can install this, or I can share a video for you on YouTube. So set up your editor and run your Flutter apps. Flutter can be built with any text editor that has command line tools. Like I said, these are the listed ones: Android Studio, Visual Studio, and Emacs. Right. So officially, these are the ones that are being supported at the moment. If there's any other IDE available, then you can still use it. But officially, right now, Android Studio, Visual Studio, and Emacs are being supported. So Android Studio is one of the widely used IDE for developing Flutter applications. Visual Studio also is widely used, and a lot of people use it as well. So for people using Android Studio, once the system requirements are made and Flutter SDK is set up, right? So these are the steps we need to follow to install to start using Flutter with Android Studio. First of all, you need to download Android Studio. These things are heavy, so I would like you to download them down. So maybe next class we can play with them. Android Studio download. But if I say you guys should download this now, it will take some time. It will take some time to finish downloads. All right, so let me share the link once again. This is for Android Studio. So if you follow this link, download Android Studio on your system. I'll prefer you first download Android Studio first before, if you want to use any IDE at all. For me, first install the IDE. If it's Visual Studio, let me share link for Visual Studio. If you want to use Visual Studio, first install Visual Studio first before downloading Flutter. Right, let me share the link once again. So from here, you can pick anyone that is compatible with your operating system. If you're on Windows, if you're on Mac, if you're on Ubuntu, so Red Hat, those are the compatible versions you can always pick. So this is this for Visual Studio. Nakik is asking how to get hands on UI development in Flutter. Yeah, we are getting there. These are just the initial setup that you need first. Right? So once you are done with this initial setup, then of course we are going to get hands on development. It's a 5-day bootcamp, right? So in this 5-day bootcamp, we'll get hands on Flutter development. So once you are done with this setup, that is only when you can start building application. Because right now you need tools to get hands on. So once you don't have the tool, how are you going to get your hands on? So when you set, I know most of you might have already have this, might have set up. Maybe most of you are coming from some programming background, or you have started working with Java, you have been working with Android, you have been working with maybe Swift for iOS. You just want to learn Flutter, or you are coming from React. So, but for those that are just neutral, they have not done any development before. So that is why I'm taking this session, so that they can also know how to install these setups. So once you follow the steps, I believe, does anyone here, maybe let me ask so that we can know how fast we can go. Do we have Android Studio on our system? Okay, okay. If you are using Android Studio, can you just say hi in the message? If you are using Android Studio, just say hi. If you are not using Android Studio, you are using Visual Studio, can you just say Visual Studio? Just type whatever you are using. Android Studio, Visual Studio. Let me see how many people are using them, so that I can foster this process. And if you have not coded before, this is your first time of moving on to code, and you are just joining development for the first time. Okay, thank you, Nakid. Nakid is using Android Studio and Visual Studio. They're using both. That is good. Good. So anyone, please, I need some response. Let me know so how we can foster this class. Destiny Basi, you're using both. All right, that is good. You're using both. Please, you guys need to pick one. And Nakid, Rahul is also using both. Destiny is using both. Please try to use one, but you can always play with both. But in this class, I'll be using Android Studio. So we are six in this, and only two people is responding. Okay, Frederick is using Visual Studio. All right. I need three more response. Three more response so we can proceed. All right. So how many of us have Flutter already installed on their system? Do we all have Flutter installed? Please, you can just respond with yes. Do we have Flutter um, installed? Okay, Destiny, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. All right. So this is brilliant. So we can foster this class then. All right. Good. Good. So let me skip these steps. These are just for the installation steps. So once you're done, these are just the process to install your Android Studio. And once you are done, this is the screen you'll be welcome with. Though you might not have the same welcome screen because I'm using this as of the time I was preparing this slide. It was I was using Android 3, so right now even my Android Studio is not this. So don't expect to see this when you launch your Android application. All right, so we have Flutter already installed in our Android Studio. Or let me ask. I'm asking this so we can foster the class. Do we have Flutter installed in our Android Studio? Just give me like yes, or you can just do thumbs up. If you have Flutter installed on your Android Studio, okay, thank you. Uh, all right, all right. Okay, so you have to move on then. So these are just the process for those that don't know. So um, let me open my Android Studio. So I'm currently using Flamingo. I know Flamingo is not the latest right now, but after Flamingo comes the latest version. Okay, so to need to close this. All right, so this is the screen you are going to see when you open your Android application. So to create new application in Flutter, come to new Flutter project. New project is for Android. If you want to create an Android application, you click on new project. If you want to build a Flutter application, you click on new Flutter project. So for we are using Flutter. We are working on Flutter. You set your path. This is very important. Where you install your Flutter. So for me, mine is on C drive. That is why I put my own Flutter when I was installing. So choose Flutter. Click on next. All right. So you are welcome with the project name. Of course, project name is just the name of your project. Right. So you can say day one demo. Please all need to be in lowercase when you're creating Flutter project from here. Of course, you can also create from the command prompt, that I will show in next class. You can also create it from your command prompt directly, but I always like using my Android Studio to create my Flutter application. So here we have the project location. Most times people forget, where is my project, where is it installed, where did I save it. So you always need to pay attention to this when you are creating your Flutter application. Try to know where the location of your file is. And here is just a description about your project. You can always ignore, you can always put something, and you can always edit this later on in your um, yam.prospect file. You can go there and edit it. So let's say the one Flutter class, right? So project type is application. Our organization, um, let's leave it as come like example. And then Android language. What language are we going to be using in this application? One, we have Java, and one we have Kotlin. So we can decide to use Kotlin or Java if you are if you are comfortable with anyone. I prefer Kotlin is okay. Sometimes I also pick Java. Let's pick Java for today. And then iOS language, you can use Swift or Object C. And then the platforms that you want your applications to run, you enable Android, enable iOS, you enable Linux, Mac, web, Windows. So these are all the platforms where your Flutter application can run. And once we are done, you click on create application, and then we wait. Please, are you still seeing my screen? All right, thank you. So uh, that will be all for today, because I don't want to go into coding from next class now. Once we have our, we've run our application. This is just how to start application, run it. And next class, I will begin to explain most of these things and do some demos of application on how to write some code in Flutter. So just to summarize, Flutter is a UI tool and frameworks for developing cross-platform application. And then advantage of Flutter include hot reload, hot restart. It's also open source and it's cross platforms, right? So we also saw the architectural component of this Flutter, which is the framework itself, the engine, and the platform. So Flutter can be installed on any operating system of your choice, mostly Windows and Mac, Linux. So Flutter apps can be developed using various editors or IDEs such as Visual Studio and Android Studio. So tomorrow, or when we have next class, we'll begin to explore all what you are seeing here. What does it mean? And then we can proceed. Please, if anyone have any question, you can ask me. I've shared my number with you. You can buzz me on WhatsApp, ask me anything, challenges as we proceed in this class. So, any question, please, before we end today's section? Okay. All right. So, we'll see you in next class. Thank you.